here with 3H Farms. I got my wonderful camera lady here, Cassie. You guys are used to seeing her, not my ugly mug. But the reason why we're doing this video today is because we've got some ideas about an aquaponics system that we want to start integrating into our farm. And we're going to show you what we're doing.
So I'm going to be recording my husband so you can see, because he always makes the magic happen. He is talented. He is the welder. He is the fabricator. He is everything that goes into building all the structures here on the farm. So let me get this camera turned around so you can see.
Alright guys, we're using what's called an IBC tote. These are used for many things, but mainly people on the farm use them for collecting rainwater from gutter systems. In fact, this one was previously used. They cut a square off the top here. They had a gutter that ran in, collected all the rainwater. So that's not going to be an issue with what we're doing today, because we're going to be cutting the whole top off. We're not going to be using the lid or the valve system here, so we don't have to worry about any leakage coming from that. A lot of people like to cut these, flip it, and use this for a grow bed, but I've got something different for that today. Different idea. So basically all I did was I started out with taking these star-headed bolts out, as you can see there. What that takes is just a very common, simple number 10 star head. Okay, you use that and take them out, and I was able to take these bars that were laying on top here, took those bolts out, cut this little plastic notch, and was able to remove these. So that's the first step. The reason why that is the first step is so that we have access to the top and nothing is in our way. Second, I took my angle grinder here and I cut on the outside of this frame piece here, okay, so I can still have this for support. I used that, I cut down here, back up, removed that piece, which is this here, okay, just comes right off, took it out. The reason why I did that is because we're just cutting the top off. We're going to utilize the majority of this tank so that we can hold more fish and more water. The issue with that is it's hard to maintenance. When you're short like we are, it's hard to bend over some things. This will need periodical maintenance. So what we're going to do is when we cut the top out, we're going to notch this out a little bit on the tank, and that way we've got plenty of room to bend over, maintenance the tank, clean it out. The pump will be inside, hoses, things of that nature. That way it's not so difficult on us. Alright folks, so just wanted to include this real quick. It's a little tip and it might save you some injury. So I like to use a sanding head. There's all sorts of different types of accessories that you can get for angle grinders, whether they're stone or sand, whatever the case is. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be kind of beveling out these edges where I cut, and that way when you are in front of your system or you're doing anything, even sometimes just walking by it, if you touch these areas that got cut, they're super sharp. And if you have children like we have, or even if you're just really busy, your mind is on work, you're not always paying attention, these will cut you. And so it's always safe to bevel those out. Also, I always unplug my power tool before I do anything with it. So when I changed out my cutting blade to my sanding here, I unplugged it. So I've got this attached, I'm ready to go, got my glasses on. It's time to replug it. Okay, and then the only other thing I need is my gloves, which are right here. Always wear gloves. These are just a Maxi Flex rubberized grip type of glove. They're not, they're not cow skin or sheepskin or nothing like that. These are very inexpensive. They usually sell them in packs, and you go through them fairly quickly, but they do give you good protection.
And grip.
Okay? And grip, especially when you're working with wet things. So what I'm doing here, like I said, is just beveling out these edges, and this is how we do it. So this edge, as you can see, is kind of rounded out now. So if I take my glove off and I touch this, it's a little warm. However, it's not sharp. Okay? You run your finger across that all day long, it's not going to cut you. Okay? So we put this glove back on. I'm going to go ahead, bevel out the rest of these real quick, and we'll be right back. All right, so went ahead, beveled all this out. As you saw, I used my angle grinder. I was fortunate enough that this tank is a little convex right here, which means that it's pushed in a little bit. If your tank or whatever you're using is up against these, it would be best to remove the tank, okay, before you did that. And that way you don't run the risk of cutting into it and creating a leak, because if that happens, you might be able to fix it, but it'd be more of a pain in the butt than anything. You might have to just start again. So like I said, I was lucky enough. This is convex. I didn't have to worry about. There's plenty of space between these bars and this container. So obviously, I didn't cut into it. These are done, but the next step now is to remove this from your frame. Now, as we mentioned before, we're going to be cutting the top out, right? But it's not going to be directly on top. We're going to be cutting it, you know, along this edge here. And so before we remove it, we're going to use these rungs kind of as a guideline. So it'll make it a lot easier when we go to cut. So the best thing to do is we're going to be cutting right about here. So I'm just going to use this rung. If you want to follow me around, I'll show you how I'm doing this. I just put it on there, use that as my straight edge, right? Super simple. You don't have to worry about if things are even because you're using the material that you have at hand. It's already there. Okay? And then if you tried to do this after you remove the tank, getting a straight line would be a big pain. So we make that line. To remove this tank, we're going to tip it over on its side. It's not very heavy. Very easy. This comes right out. These little plastic pieces here that help keep it in place, we're just going to be getting rid of these. We might find a use for those later on. I don't like to throw things out. I like to be able to reuse things. We don't have a recycling service out here because we're so far out. And so if we throw things away, it's just going to a landfill. And I don't like the idea of that. So we try to reuse as much as possible. This might go in with the goat pen or something. It could be used as a buffer. If we have something that's rubbing, causing friction, something like that, they would be great to use. Or even just as fillers to put in between to fill gaps. Okay? So these off to the side. Don't need them. Also, before you do anything else, these edges that I cut, these edges that have been cut and beveled are going to rust. So the best thing to do is to go ahead and spray them. You can use galvanized paint. I like Rust-Oleum. Just a simple spray paint. You could use any color. You can use any type. You can even use a clear acrylic and then change the color later on if you want to. Just takes a quick spray, okay? This is fast drying, so it'll be dry in just a minute. And I don't have to worry about that rusting, okay? You don't want rust to get in your system. It can clog things and could put impurities in your water, and could just cause a bunch of grief. So I got the galvanized paint because obviously this is galvanized and it just looks better to me aesthetically. But like I said before, it doesn't matter what you use, okay? Next, we're going to be cutting our tank. So give me a moment, I'm going to rearrange this and we'll get started on cutting. So, switch back to my cutting blade on my circular or angular saw here. I'm going to plug this back in. Got my gloves on. Got my glasses, which are actually safety glasses and sunglasses. I love that. We're going to put this on its side. And we're going to begin to cut. Now you can use anything you want. You could use a sawzall, chop saw, whatever. You could use a sharp blade and manually cut it. You can do anything you want. I prefer the angle saw because it's fast. I love my sawzall, but if you use something like that, take a drill and perforate down into this so you have a starting point for your for your saw. You can also use a jigsaw. If you use a handheld jigsaw, also drill down, give a place for that blade to start, okay? You don't need that with one of these. You just cut along your edge, and I'm going to start right here. I don't know how well you guys can see it. I'm going to start right here. I'm not going to be cutting my sides first, okay, because it's going to be easier to cut along here and along here all the way around, because if I keep these from being cut, it's going to give me support on the structure as I'm cutting. It's only plastic. If I cut my edges, my corners here, as I'm going along, it's going to be flopping around on me. So just a little tip, cut these first and then go back and cut your corners. So I'm going to start cutting now and we'll show you how that's done. So as you see, I cut this line, okay? This is where it's been cut. I did not cut my corners. I'm going to go ahead and finish this out, and then I'll show you the corners in just a moment. In between cutting here, we had a couple of goats get out that we had to fix, and then we are here in Texas, so it's super hot out here. Had to do a wardrobe change. But we got here to this front area. This is where I'm dropping it so that we can have better access. Just wanted to show you guys real quick. You can take any straight edge you have. I'm just going to use this metal pole. You can use a piece of wood. You could use a level. Doesn't really matter. This is actually going to be set a little below. So I'm just going to set this on the ground here. Make it even and just use my marker. I'm just going to do it like that. Okay, when I cut, I'm just going to make a little notch. Little notch. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, but any straight edge will do. Just line it up, use that to mark it, and then you're good to go. So I cut my 4 sides. Now it's time to cut my corners. Because I did not cut these corners, I had the stability of the actual tank to be able to cut good. Another good thing about using the angle grinder here with the cutting wheel is it pretty much just melts the plastic. You don't get a lot of rigid cuts like you would with a saw. It's about as smooth as if you would use a blade, just much easier. So that's another reason why I like to use this. We're going to cut this corner here, show you how that's done, okay? It's super simple. just like that, guys. See? Now it's floppy. So if we would have cut that corner first, I would have been having to fight that as I'm cutting these edges, or these straight lines. Okay? We're going to go ahead and cut the other 3 corners. We'll show you what that looks like when we're done. Okay, folks. So, got the top. Okay? That is not going to be tossed. Like I said, we like to reuse everything we can. What we're going to do is we're going to line it with plastic, and we're going to use that as a grow bed later on in a different system, or maybe as an addition to this system, depending on how well it does. Now, because this sat on our property for a couple of months, it does have some nastiness inside. So we're going to scrub that out, we're going to clean it, and we're also going to clean the outside. The reason why we're going to clean the outside is because we're going to paint. We are going to paint the outside of this tank so that it will reduce the amount of sunlight that goes in, which will reduce the amount of algae that can grow. Now, we're going to be using a submergible pump, and there's going to be flowing water and aeration, so algae will already be discouraged from growing. This is just an extra step to help ensure that. Okay? So we're going to get this washed up and get it ready, get it painted, and then we're going to place it back in here. One other tip I wanted to tell you guys too is a lot of times people will cut this metal frame down to the same size as what your tank will be. I actually strongly encourage you to keep this. This can be used for many things. You can hang all sorts of different things out there. You can put a trash bucket, compost bucket. You can use it for your fish food, your materials, gloves, just whatever you want. You put a little bungee on here, hang a bucket. You can put other plants on it, you know, if you wanted to do tomatoes or something around it. Super convenient to have something to hang it off of, and it's right here with your system. If you cut this down to the height of what your tank is, you're literally just taking opportunities away. And we'll see you pretty soon after we get this cleaned up. All right, hey guys, it's been a minute, but this is what we've done so far. So we painted the outside of our IBC container. Just went with the dark brown, any dark color or any color really will do to keep that sunlight from coming in. You can see here that we did not paint the bottom. It's on top of the metal pallet, and there's really nothing going to get in there so far as light, so no big deal there. What we did was we set it in a spot that was mainly level, and then we kind of leveled it out with some boards and stuff. Here, what we've got is a platform made entirely of pallets. Did the pallets because we do have a lot of pallets on hand. A lot of businesses like to throw them out. People get rid of them. When I see pallets, I pick them up. And this is one reason why. These were 100% free, so I don't have to worry about cost of building materials so much. So what we did here was we just put 3 on their side and then 2 pallets on top. We used this construction level here to make sure everything was level. If you want to come in and take a look at this bubble, you'll see you want your bubble right in the middle of these 2 lines. That tells you that it's level. So we did some moving around. We've got some boards in some places just to pick one end up or shimmy the other end, whatever the case is, until it's level. And that's what we need. That's ready for our containers. What we're doing for our containers is we're using the blue 55-gallon food grade barrels. There's a lady that's local to us here that sells these, fairly inexpensive. What I did here was I just cut them in half. This is going to hold our rock and our water. And then on top, we're going to have styrofoam and with our grow bed on top. So I'm going to cut these two that we have over here in half. I'm going to put some wood up in between them, and so that they're stable, and then put the rock in. And we're gonna show you what that looks like as soon as we're done with that. And then we'll get to setting the pump and running our PVC lines.
Okay, I'm just gonna talk for Eric. Hey, this is Cassie, and he is measuring out the grow beds. We're gonna cut them in half. And so he's using his level to make sure it's completely straight. And then these are the grow beds cut in half, or the containers cut in half for the grow beds. So these are what is going to go on top of the system. And he's working super hard, trying to get this done. Trying to also do dinner here pretty soon. So we just want to show you the process of how we're getting it done, so we can put them up there. All right, everyone. I just wanted to show you that. Working tirelessly since yesterday and all day today. He has got the grow beds on some pallets that we use, like he was showing you. And then he also has the grow beds, getting them with the pipe, waiting for the sealant to dry. And got the pipe and stuff running to this other side here. See how there's a hole there? Just like that. And then that's gonna be, is this gonna be attached to the pump, right? Yep. And pumping water into there, and then they cycle through each other and come back down, and that'll help aerate the water. We're not sure if we need an aerator right now. That's just, we're trying it out, but this is what we got so far. So I just wanted to add to the video. Okay, Eric has been working super hard. He's done a lot of steps without it being on video because I haven't been able to record him, but he can explain what he's done. Go ahead, babe.
Well, first, went ahead and filled these little holes in where we cut our front out. That's going to discourage any wasps or ants or whatever to get in and start living. Went ahead and painted the top just like the bottom here. Put that on as the lid. Used the already pre-cut hole to place my pump. And what I did was I just put a three-way here with an isolation valve. I've got it fully open, and that way it helps aerate the tank and create circulation. What that's going to do is it's going to keep the algae really from growing, and it's going to put enough oxygen in the water for the fish to survive. Then the other hose here, this one, the main hose, just goes right down to the pump. So I've got this zip tied here, just so that I can make sure that that isolation valve stays just above the water line. If you want to get a picture of that. See here how it's just above the water line? It's about 2 inches above it. And then it comes into our first barrel here. I've got an isolation valve here. The reason for this one was so that I could control the flow. I wanted to have an oversized pump with the isolation valve inside for the aeration, but I didn't want it to compromise the power going to the barrels. So if I needed to adjust, I would use this, which I did. It's actually about 80% of the way closed. This is coming into this one here, and I've got PVC in between, just regular. It's actually schedule 80, so it's pretty tough stuff. It can handle the weather. In between each of these half barrels, then filled up with lava rock. Now we use lava rock because it's porous, but it'll still sink. That's going to act as a filter to catch all the nutrients from the fish poop that is being pumped out of our main tank. So the poopy water will come through the hose here, This is also food grade heavy duty hose. Down into the bucket or the barrels. It will deliver that nutrient rich water all the way through down here to our last barrel. This is our 4th barrel here, and you can see just on this here how clear this water is, and it's mainly because all of those lava rocks are filtering that water. So it comes into this last one here. We're going to have grow beds in all 4 of these, which is actually quite a bit of grow space. I'm excited to see how much we'll yield. Here I used a typical standpipe, like what you would use in the tank for your commode. And I drilled a hole through the bottom of this barrel, put it up through here. Now I made sure that the top of this standpipe did not go above the top of this pipe that feeds the barrel. If your standpipe is above this, it will not work, okay? You have to have it either exactly level or just below where you want your water coming in at. If it's above that, it'll just overflow. It won't do right. So that standpipe is draining water into this tube here. And I've just got it going into a piece of PVC. So let me take the top off a little bit here, and I can kind of show you. So that standpipe is putting water back into the tank, creating some circulation, but that isolation valve is really what's causing the movement and the aeration in that tank. Super easy to get to, super easy to maintenance. Everything is right here to work on. And self-sufficient. Also, just in case, if anything goes wrong and our pump stops working or the lava rocks aren't filtering properly or whatever, and we have to clean the tank, what I did was I drilled a 1-inch hole and just made a drain for the main tank here. So it's just a hose, another isolation ball valve here, and of course just to drain the tank, you open up the valve and it drains. Super simple, but that can save you a big headache if you ever have to drain this tank. And that's it.
All right, thank you guys for watching our video, and stay tuned for our next videos or when we get the food growing in the grow beds, and keep watching, and we're going to keep showing you how you can make your own aquaponics system. For how much, babe? How much should we spend on this roughly? How much if you'd have to buy all your materials?
I spent probably $200.
$200. So, you know, but you could do the system a lot cheaper if it was a little smaller, but we're hoping to have the 4 grow beds, and just keep watching and see how it does for when we got it done, right?